What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking more about Ananta. So this is going to be an article here translated from the IGN TGS stuff. This is a live stream interview that went over a little section of it here. There's a whole 5-hour thing about all kinds of different stuff. But if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you to Cammy Creed on the Reddit here, though, because I wanted to check this one out because they actually have different pieces of information that I've not seen in other interviews. We are going to skip this first little section because it's just kind of introducing the game, what it is, what's going on with it. We've seen a lot of that stuff, but I wanted to jump into a couple of things. So they talk a little bit more about the battle system in this interview. They also talk about re-experiencing the story as different characters, basically being able to replay sections of the story based on who you're playing as, which is super cool. So the first one we're going to talk about is please tell us about the battle system. The current battle system allows players to, of course, not only counter enemies' attacks, but also to guard, dodge, and perform parries by timing them just right. We really wanted to capture the sense of action. The main inspirations came from Jackie Chan, movies, and other films. So we obviously know a little bit about that, but the next part is pretty interesting. So one thing that stood out to me in the battle system was the parry system. Recently, parrying appears in many games, but in your system, I noticed you can parry simultaneous attacks from multiple enemies, which felt really fresh. So obviously we played a lot of games recently where parrying was a thing, right? Parrying seems to be pretty popular in action-based games. It says, yes, exactly. We include a lot of variations in the battle system. You can parry multiple enemies at once, but also respond differently depending on whether an enemy is behind you or below you. I don't really know the below you part. I wonder if that means like in front of you, to the left of you, like under you maybe, which have different motions. So this is an interesting part where it says different motions. The only thing I can kind of think of is like an analog, you know, if you're playing on like your PlayStation, you know, hold which way you want to do, depending, like if someone's behind you, you got to hold back and parry. If somebody's like to the left or the right of you, you have to pull that directional. Obviously, I don't know if maybe on the mouse, you got to do like, you know, pull your mouse back. But it's interesting to see that they have different motions. We've also incorporated interactions with the terrain for added variety. We've seen that, you know, the garbage can thing where we smash their head in when we kick them into the vehicle. Those are pretty cool for the environmental stuff. Now we're seeing an escape sequence with cars while you're shooting while driving. Is completely scripted, or does it change depending on your player's choices? This is pretty interesting. So what you're seeing is just one mission within the story. While following the missions, players have a certain amount of freedom. For example, they can crash into enemies or simply focus on escaping. It's up to them. So it sounds like there will be like certain stories that have a progression, right? You're going to be doing stuff, but you can kind of make like smaller choices. Like, you know, how long do you fight these enemies? Are you just gonna like, I'm just gonna get out of here and I just don't really want to experience the, you know, fight? Or are you gonna be like kind of playing with it and crashing into people and like shooting them a little bit more? You know, it's kind of up to you there, but it doesn't sound like, at least in this mission, that you're gonna have a ton of freedom. I hope that's a little bit different because I like having choices that matter in missions. So hopefully this is just kind of referencing that exact one, because that kind of seems like what they're talking about. The next one's I see. Now, since this is an open world game, I can assume players can freely drive cars outside of story sequences as well. Can you please tell me the variety of vehicles and how the vehicles can change depending on the character? So we've seen a couple of things, like Taffy has her own little motorbike. So I wanted to kind of talk about this one because I think it's interesting. So within the open world, we have the original Ananta branded vehicles. So I'm guessing it's like the generic cars, the ones people drive, NPCs, all that stuff, but not just cars. There's boats, motorcycles, and even an aircraft. I think it's interesting that they added boats and aircrafts in here. So it does sound like we'll be able to like maybe fly helicopters, airplanes, all that kind of stuff, drive boats, obviously. For example, the blue car you saw in the footage belongs to the character like Haya. I think her name's like Haya, and I keep saying Kai, damn it. Like Haya. It's her own supercar. Different characters will have their own vehicles, some customized, some unique. Please look forward to it. So it does sound like each character is going to have some sort of uniqueness to them, depending on the character you're playing. So I'm guessing the main protagonist will have their own like kind of customized stuff that we'll be able to play with. In that footage, we saw cars getting damaged. Are there facilities where you can repair or upgrade your vehicles? So this is interesting because we really haven't seen anything talking about like where you repair or upgrade or do cosmetics. Cars in the game can take physical, real damage. For example, if the tires are destroyed, the car can no longer drive. In some cases, players can go to repair shops in the city, or if they prefer freedom, visit modification garages to upgrade or customize their vehicles. So I'm kind of wondering if like there's just general stuff where you just pull in, it just does a basic fix on your car, or you can go to certain places that like you get different tires with different rims, or, you know, like a little bit more of a cosmetic custom feel. Or there's just like a shop in the city where like, I just want to get my tires fixed. I don't really care. And you just drive in, drive out, and you're good. Kind of sounds like you have a little bit of freedom there. I see now that the protagonist is using something like a slime-like substance that stretches out of their arm. I saw this can be pretty used freely in the open world, but can you tell us more about the ability, something unique to the character? What you're seeing is called the Hand of Montoi. I can't say that, dude. It's a special ability of the protagonist. With it, players can freely traverse the world, attack enemies at a distance, and similar to that. So it definitely sounds like it's just pertaining to the protagonist. Doesn't think like anybody else is going to be able to have it. So far from what we've seen, everybody else has their own way of, driving a car. Like Taffy has her little boat or her little scooter thing. Obviously we just talked about like Heya having her supercar. So obviously everybody's going to have a little bit of a unique ability, a little bit of a unique thing to them. That ability is unique to the protagonist, but what about other characters? What other abilities or traits do they have? Also, one thing that has been talked about recently is unlocking new characters is not done through gacha. If not through gacha, how would you unlock characters? Yes, that's something very important to Ananta, the theme of human connections. Every character in the city has their own life, their own skills. We want players to encounter, characters to feel memorable, not to be left up to luck. Characters can become companions you meet in the city. Each have their own preferences and lifestyles, and when you meet certain conditions, they'll join you. So it sounds like the way to get people to join you, which we already knew it wasn't going to be gacha. We knew it was going to be done through the main story or side questions, or side quests rather. But it sounds like you're going to have to meet certain conditions depending on the character and kind of fulfilling certain things. So maybe it's like a relationship goal. Maybe it's a certain amount of missions. Maybe it's like a certain mission you got to do. But it sounds like each one's going to have different conditions that you're going to be able to have to meet in order to have them join you. And then it goes on to say, then once they do, not only can you use their special abilities, but you can also re-experience the story from their perspective by playing them. Now, this is the interesting part. So you can re-experience the story from their perspective. So I'm guessing in this scenario, it's talking about if they're involved in a situation. So basically, if we go back to this one where we're talking about the, chase scene here with like Heya, and the protagonist, I'm guessing if you eventually unlock her, you can play from her perspective. It doesn't sound like it's going to be too big of a deal in that particular mission because all she's really doing is driving there. But maybe it's like, how did she get there? Because in the demo, she just kind of pops up, so maybe we play the prologue to that and get a good sense of how she got there. There's also another reference that happened in like the gameplay, like announcement thing where, the protagonist was like holding his hand up because he was like surrounded by a bunch of people. And then somebody had a sniper and was sniping him off. And you could obviously tell that they switched places, like you are now playing the sniper instead of the protagonist. Maybe that's like kind of an example of whenever you unlock the next character, you can play from that perspective and all of a sudden do stuff. Maybe in the main story, you're the protagonist and all of a sudden, you see people getting sniped and you're like, oh, I'm saved. But then if you play as the other character, you're the one doing the sniping. You know what I mean? So it seems like there's some different multiple perspectives that we're going to be able to play, which is really cool for being able to re-experience the story and being able to kind of see like better glimpses of it. Maybe we have internal dialogue from different characters that we maybe didn't see for the protagonist perspective. And I just think it'd be very interesting to be able to kind of see stuff from a different angle. And it makes it more interesting because if they're, doing this stuff where they're not necessarily upgrading the story like over and over again, like every like 6 weeks or something like that, then we're going to have some replayability. And at least that gives us a little bit of that. Yesterday, when I explored the open world, I noticed many locations that remind me of Tokyo as I live there. So then we've kind of went over this. So Ananta's going over more cities and landscapes that are Asian in theme. So we're not going to get a lot of stuff that's like LA, New York, Manhattan, that kind of stuff. So they're obviously very Asian inspired. But overall, I think for me, the re-experiencing stuff and obviously just going over like some of the combat system, it looks like there's a little bit of freedom with the parries and the dodges and all that kind of stuff that makes it very interesting. But I thought I'd share this one because I think it's a little piece of information that we haven't really seen. Talk about some of the car stuff, re-experiencing the stories, some of the combat, and hopefully you guys got some value out of it. So hopefully you guys sub to the channel if you guys are new here and want to see more Ananta stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.